Hello. So today we will be doing some yin poses that are going to target the hips to stretch and open up and increase that range of motion. So first up is a pose called butterfly. So to get into butterfly, with our feet forward, and of course all your props surrounding you and nearby, we'll take the soles of the feet, bring them together and draw them in towards the body. And then allow the knees to fall out towards the sides. So this pose should feel nice once we're all set up. If there's a couple things that you might feel. The first is might feel that tendency to lean back and like it's a struggle to stay upright. If that's the case, then we need to elevate the hips. So it might be as much as one block to sit up on underneath the hips, or maybe you don't need that much and just a folded blanket. But whatever the case, elevate the hips enough so that the back is nice and straight, if not forward a little bit. So at first we might be a little bit higher until we gain that mobility. And when you lean forward, it just makes the pose a little bit easier because we're feeling it in the hips. We don't want to also feel it in the back and in the core trying to stay upright. This is not meant to be a multitasker kind of a stretch. So when you find that position with the feet pulled into the body and the knees out to the sides, the second thing that might be a bit of an issue is the knees. So if your knees are hurting at all, or something just doesn't feel quite right, or if it's too much of a stretch, a block beneath the knees. Now it might be something where, well, what if I only need a block under one knee? And that might be the case, but I always like to have things even. So if one knee needs it, just pop a block underneath the other one just so things stay nice and even. So then the third thing we want to take a quick little note of is how close are the feet pulled into the body. This is the beauty of yin. When we're in hatha yoga, we want to draw those feet in as close as they'll go, but in yin, doesn't matter. This is what's lovely because it's a different stretch with the feet pulled in way close to the body or the feet a little bit further away from the body. So you get to choose your own adventure for this one. And then once you have decided where you want to go, you could, if you have no idea, you're like, I don't know, just pull the feet in and where they land, they land. And then maybe next time, switch it up a little bit. I like to draw mine in as close as they'll go without really being nice and tight and drawn in like in hatha yoga. So a nice easy, draw them in all the way and then start to lean forward. Sometimes I do like to have the feet outward just because it is such a different stretch, but then this is where the yin part comes in. You're in your stretch and you just relax. So this is where you might want some props and stack up some bolsters or blocks or pillows or cushions, whatever's cozy. And just, this is my imaginary stack of bolsters and then relax. And then if you do have that mobility, maybe lowering down onto the elbows, or if you're not quite there yet, elbows onto the stack of pillows or whatever it is. But we're trying to relax everything that doesn't need to be used, even the neck. So relaxing the neck and just, like if you're up on your hands, allow your body to kind of slump forward and just feeling that stretch in the hips. Okay, so then we just wait. We just hang out for a little bit. And while you're in that stretch for a little while, one of two things will happen. The first thing that tends to happen is the body opens up a little bit. So you might find that if you're specifically propped up onto the hands or onto your bolsters or what have you, you stop feeling the stretch and you're able to go a little bit further. So in each case, we're trying to just find the edge, not pushing past it, a gentle stretch here. Conversely, we might find that over time, oh, that's a bit too much and we need to come out of it a little bit. So just watch for those two things. Otherwise, just relax and hang out. We're almost done actually. Maybe a couple deep breaths here, getting those muscles and joints and tendons and ligaments, a little bit of oxygen. And then nice and slow. I like to move extra gooey slow in yin and make it feel really luxurious. Come on out. And then whatever organic movements feel nice. I like to do a couple knee taps and just, I don't know, I like to do, I don't know, like just a few little movements. You'll know what I mean. If you're in a pose and it's a bit of a stretch for a while, it's nice to just move around a little bit, sometimes in the opposite direction, which we call counter positions. The next pose up is similar. It's called half butterfly, and there's lots of variations. So I'd love to go through all those different variations with you. The first one we'll do is, I want to move my blocks over here. So we begin in butterfly, but then what we'll do is I like to shift over to one side of the mat and then extend one leg out to the side, keeping the other one in. And then facing forward, so our forward is now the bent leg foot. And the angle of the bent leg and the extended leg is the same. So the knees are going out on the same trajectory. So if I did have my protractor handy, which you shouldn't need for yoga, it would be the same angle on either side. Then same thing as full butterfly, we want to lean forward. So if we're not, then maybe just pop that block beneath the hips or the blanket. Whatever it is, make sure it's beneath both sit bones, not just one. We don't want the hips lopsided. We want them nice and even. And then we reach forward. So nice and slow. And then we hang out here for a bit. And I'm feeling a stretch on the inseam of the extended leg. You might feel it in the same area in the last pose that we did, in the hip. So wherever you're feeling it, find the edge but not pushing past it. And then just hang out here for a little bit. We won't hold these poses too long today, just learning them, getting used to them, getting comfortable in them. And I do mean that. It's not a grin and bear it situation. It's not a no pain, no gain. It really is find that place where the stretch does feel gentle and you feel like you could hold this pose for a minute, maybe even 2 minutes, and eventually maybe even 3 minutes. And then again, checking in with the body. We've been here for a little bit of time. Are we able to deepen the pose a little bit? Or is the opposite true? Is it, no, maybe I went in a little too far, I need to come out a bit. So periodically checking in with the body. But the whole while staying in tune with the body, trying not to think about any other thoughts, what you'll be doing later, what you just finished doing, staying with the body and feeling the sensations. And in that way, we don't go too far. Nice and gooey slow will come on up and then switch sides. So I'll then send myself over to the other side of my mat. Maybe come on up, a couple little organic movements first, and then just going to do a little lift and scooch over to the other side. No need to be graceful. This is yoga, not ballet. So now I've got my other leg bent and extending the other leg, lifting up nice and tall, and then leaning forward. So you might need to drag along your block or your folded blanket with you. And then sometimes one side is a little bit more open and flexible than the other. For me, this one's a little less so than the first side. And so just take that into account. Don't try to match evenly exactly. What we're trying to match is the intensity. So still find that gentle stretch where you feel like you could hang out there for quite some time. And eventually things even out over time. Trying to find stillness. Maybe a couple deep breaths. and gooey, slow. Come on all the way up. And then same thing again, if you need any organic movements. Sometimes it's just a different movement each time, so I felt the need to kind of hug my knees in a little bit there. And then still on half butterfly, there's another variation. So that was with one leg out to the side. This one is one leg forward. So what I'll do is start with both legs extended forward, bend one leg into butterfly, and the other leg is forward, lifting up nice and tall, leaning forward. So same. If you're struggling to stay upright or you're curving and rounding the back at all, elevate the hips onto a block. Might be a bit much for this one. Give it a go. Maybe it's a folded blanket, maybe it's 2 folded blankets, until we find the place where we can lean forward and relax. So there again, you might want to have some blocks stacked up and rest your forehead on the blocks. Whatever your setup is, over time, once you get used to yin, you start getting really good at propping up all of your supplies and feeling completely relaxed. This is one of the reasons why I love yin so much, because you do want to feel, you want it to feel nice and gooey. Couple deep breaths. And I always find if I do a couple of deep intentional breaths, on the exhale, really focusing on relax, and it feels quite nice. So we're just over 1 minute here. This one happens to be one of my favorites. So we're going to take a little bit of extra time in this one, simply because I love it a lot. So you have to join in with me. Of course, that's not true. If it's too much, as always, come on out, honoring your body, taking care of you. If there's more room, go ahead and find more room. If your body's like, no, I need to come out a little, or a lot. Almost done. Trying to find stillness. And then slowly come on out. And switching sides, if you need a little organic movement, feel free. I feel like I'm good to go other side. So changing legs. Now we bend the other leg in and extending, leaning forward, and just slowing it down. Everyone's a little bit different depending on how much mobility you have. I know for me, the way my muscles work is it feels fairly intense for the first maybe 10 seconds, and then my body does relax quite a bit. It's not, you probably can't tell. Probably it's something only I can feel, but the muscles are, there is sort of a reaction that happens where the body will tense up, especially if you move too quickly. And so it's just your automatic system fighting against, like, what if you're falling? Kind of a thing. And then once your body realizes, oh no, she's doing this weird shape on purpose, then there's a bit of a relaxation that happens there. And then at that point, maybe finding that extra room that the body gives you, only going further when the body lets you and gives you that space. Then you take the space, not forcing anything at all. It is actually counterproductive to force anything. We really want to find that space where it feels really gentle. That's going to be the quickest way to flexibility. Couple deep breaths here. See if you can relax even more on each exhale for our last little bit here. And then slowly, slowly come on out. And then maybe a couple little organic movements. There is one other one. I was going to skip it, but it's kind of a good one. I think we should do it. So it's another variation of half butterfly. And so we start in the same starting position as the first half butterfly, where we have one leg bent in like butterfly and the other leg extended out to the side. This one I don't actually hold as long. All of the yin postures are safe to hold for 1 to 3 minutes, some of them even more, but this one I don't. This one's a side bend. I usually stay here about a minute. So towards the extended leg, the hand can reach along the leg or in front of the leg. I like to reach along the leg, and then the other arm reaches up and over, lengthening. So it's a really nice side body stretch. So hanging out here. And while we're here, this feels a little bit yang, less yin, which is why I was like, should I add this one? But may as well. So noticing you're not relaxing so much in this position, but we're trying to open up the body towards the sky. And just a few moments longer. To come out, belly scoops in and come on all the way out, and then we'll switch sides. So I'm just gonna shimmy on over to the other side and get into that position where one leg is bent in, other leg extended out to the side, lifting up nice and tall. Again, you might need to be elevated on your blanket or block. And then up and over, nice side bend. And then opening up the heart. There's a tendency to want to tilt in, so opening up. And then scoop the belly in. Come on all the way out. And yeah, that's enough half butterfly positions or butterfly positions. There's quite a bit that we can do with that one pose. So the next one is called deer. So lots of animals in this yin system. So for deer, which way should I face? I'll just go forward on my mat, and I think that'll show you the best angles here. So I'm going to have my right leg forward in like a pin. I'm making basically a pinwheel here. And so what I'm trying to do is have both hips fall out, or both sit bones rather. So the hips are level, the sit bones on the floor. This one doesn't want to. So this is where the stretch mostly is. With this back leg, what I'm trying to do is internally rotate the leg in the hip socket, and then the front leg is externally rotating in the hip socket. So what we do here is, if you're feeling, especially the leg that's bent and heading backwards, if the knee feels any pain at all whatsoever, lean away from the leg. Okay, and then we're just gently encouraging that hip to lower down to the ground. And then eventually we're sitting completely upright and just feeling that stretch a little bit. If you don't feel the stretch at all, that's okay too. So we might not feel a stretch, and it's good for maintenance if that's the case. If you're not feeling the stretch and you do want to try going a bit further, you could, the foot, I've got my foot pulled in towards the hip here, you could extend it away from the hip, and that it encourages the hip, or the leg in the hip, to internally rotate a little bit more. And we just hang out here for a little bit. So again, trying to relax everything that doesn't need to be used. And for me, this actually takes all of my concentration. And I like to visualize the leg in my mind's eye. So I'm thinking about the upper leg bone and the top of the leg bone in the hip socket, and it's rotating inward. And so I don't want the knee to rotate. I want the hip, the leg in the hip to rotate. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's completely okay too. Just looking for a bit of a stretch somewhere in the hip, but not the knee. If you do feel the knee, lean away. But this is what helps build proprioception, which is just a fancy word for where is my body in space? Where is it? What's happening? What is my leg doing? What is my hip doing? I've even heard some yogis say that they can close their eyes and feel where their spleen is. I'll go ahead and say I'm not quite there yet, but that's fine. And then we'll slowly come on out and switch sides. All right. So finding that pinwheel on the other side. Same thing again. And the thing with the hips is sometimes it can feel very different on the second side. So just taking the same amount of care and attention on that second side. Maybe the foot needs to be in a little closer on this side. Maybe it can move out a little more. Eventually hoping for the same angles on both sides for everything. But if that's not the case yet, don't worry about it at all. We're just increasing range of motion a little bit, whatever that looks like. As long as we're in good, healthy alignment, trying to get the hips neutral, even, square, as best as we can. And then relaxing here for a minute. I'm not feeling it as much, so I'm going to step my foot away from the hip a little bit. And then once again, if you're feeling it too much, you lean away from the bent leg. If you need to feel it more, trying to really press down into the hip, into that sit bone. I like to even put my hands right on my hips so I can feel, are they even? And then we'll slowly, slowly come on out. That is a weird one, not gonna lie. So the next one is called dragons. So for this one, I like to have something under my back knee. This is a lunge position. So one knee will be, oops, I'm just kicking my blocks here. One knee will be behind you. And I'm going to step my right foot forward. So for dragons, there's a couple different positions. We'll do the low flying dragons that look something like this, but there is, spoiler alert, we'll do this another class, but this is high flying dragons. For low flying dragons that we want to do today, bring both hands to the inside of the front foot and with the spine long. So here's me curving my spine. We want to have the spine nice and long. Lowering the body as much as is available. This might even be too low. So this is where you might want to have a block beneath the hands up higher. So your low flying dragons might look like a high flying dragons, but we're trying to go as low as available. The opposite might be true. You might be able to lower down to the elbows, trying not to curve the back though. And if that's too much, but up here is too high, you can lower the elbows onto a block. But we want both elbows to be even. So if I'm going to lower, sometimes people will lower one elbow, but then it's not square, and we do want this to be square. So we hang out here for a little bit, and again, looking for a gentle stretch, not a super deep stretch. And we breathe. For the last little bit of this pose, we'll do winged dragon. So just so you can see my front leg, I'm going to come up, but you can stay low if you are low. So what I'm doing with my front leg is I'm stepping my, actually no, you can step the toes out to the side, but I'm actually going to not. I think traditionally for yin yoga, we keep the foot where it is, but then shift the weight to the outside edge of the foot. The toes do come out a bit. That's okay. So knee goes out to the side. This is winged dragon. Winged dragon. That's difficult to enunciate properly. Winged dragon. And it just changes the stretch a little bit. So depending on how much flexibility you have there, you might lower and then you might come out quite far to the side, or it might not move much at all. Wherever you're at, as long as you're feeling a very gentle stretch, then you're doing it right. And then to come out, we'll bring it all back. Yeah, whether or not to tip the toes out to the side. I did find that if I don't tip my toes out to the side, it feels like a bit too much of a stretch on the ankle. So super okay to let the toes tip out a little bit. What we don't want is to overstretch anything. So come on out. And then we'll switch sides. I like to move really, really, really slow. If I'm ever in a yoga class, I'm always the last one to arrive on that second side because I just like to go nice and slow. My hips like to move slow, especially so. Nice and long with the spine. And then lowering down as much as is available. And again, same thing with the hips especially. Sometimes one side is a little more open than the other. So taking the same care and attention on the second side. And then for the last little bit, we'll allow the knee to fall out to the side a little bit carefully. Yeah, my toes naturally just sort of went a little bit outward. And then we'll slowly bring it all back in and come on out. All right. So the next one, I don't need my blanket for, but most people do. So it's called square, and the hatha version is fire log. So you might be familiar with it if you've done some hatha yoga before. So for this one, what we do is, I like to start with the knees bent, and I'm going to show you the modification first because a lot of people cannot do square. So if you can't do square, you can probably do this one. So you lean back and the knees are bent, feet on the floor. One ankle crosses over the knee, and it's the same. So this is stretching the side that the knee is bent on, and if this doesn't stretch at all, you can lean forward. And if this still doesn't stretch, then we head into square. And that's where we draw the bottom leg in, but not too much. So it's not cross-legged. The feet are away from the body more than most people do. So most people do try to kind of come into a kind of a cross-legged position. But the ankle of the top foot is on top of the knee, and then the knee on top of the ankle. So wherever you get stuck, hold. And that's where you put cushions and blankets and things in the spaces where there's between the floor and your leg, or your leg and your other leg. And then eventually, we are sitting in a bit of a square position. So the reason it's called fire log and hatha is because your lower legs are stacked like fire logs, one on top of the other. And oftentimes, we can only go so far, and that's okay. But eventually, we've got that foot completely over the knee, and the knee over the foot. And then if you're still not feeling the stretch, lean forward. We want to be forward-ish anyways, so if you're not, then up on your blanket. For the hips, if the hips are higher than the knees, it'll be a little bit easier. So just getting everything all squared up. And then we hang out here for a little bit. So leaning forward as much as is available. And same. If the body gives you some space, go ahead and accept that space. we'll slowly, slowly come on out. And then we'll switch sides. I like to do this very specific organic movement. Legs straight, couple little knee taps while leaning back. It's basically doing the exact opposite of that stretch. So with a lot of hip opening, it's nice to extend the legs straight for a few moments between sides and then heading into the other side. So you might want to start with that same starting position, the modification, where the other leg crosses over. Check again, how much mobility is there. Maybe pulling in that bottom leg and then maybe shifting the feet a little bit. And then when you're ready, heading into whatever the full expression of this pose is for you, maybe leaning forward, maybe not. I know for me, I definitely have one hip that's tighter. That's this one, so I have to focus a little bit more on this hip. And I actually, for me, I even help the leg externally rotate. So trying to get that upper leg to open. And this is the same as butterfly in the way that if you're feeling any knee pain, you want to elevate it with a block or just come on out a little bit. Otherwise, holding and breathing and relaxing. There is a tendency in this one to guard. So if you're not sure if you're guarding, try to bring your awareness to the hips and see if you can feel any tension there. So guarding looks like tension or feels like tension. And if you are, come on out a little bit and relax in the hips. So really, really relaxing. Again, I can't say enough. We want to feel completely relaxed and feel a gentle stretch. That's the most efficient, effective way to get flexible fastest. That was a lot of alliteration, but it's true. Every word. And to come out nice and slow. And we'll head into that same little counter position, extending the legs forward, leaning back onto the hands, maybe a couple little knee taps. And this is a hips class. So the next one also is for the hips. My hips are starting to feel like, wow, that is a lot of stretching, but it gets even better. The next one up is shoelaces. There's a few different ways to get into this pose. So I think the easiest is if you're sitting here, this one, 99% of people who try this one at first need to be up on a block or a couple blankets minimum. So the left leg goes underneath the right, and the knees pointing forward, and right from here, if you're not on a block and it's not working out very well or it's feeling really tight, you might want to situate yourself onto some blankets right here. The knee wants to tip out to the side. What we want is the foot beside the hip and the knee facing right straight forward. Then the other foot goes on top, and then it too goes towards the side of the body, and then one knee stacks right on top of the other. So wherever you get stuck, just hold, same thing again. And if you're at the point where the bottom leg doesn't want to bend, you need to elevate more. And what I mean by that is some people say, oh, I can't do that, but I can do this. But this is a modification, to be fair, this is. But only one leg is feeling the stretch in the hip. The bottom leg will feel it in the hamstrings, but it changes the essence of the stretch if you have that bottom leg straight. So it's better to be elevated on quite a bit of blocks if needed, but trying to get both legs folded in. So wherever you are, just hold wherever you get stuck. If this isn't stretching here, I'll show you the second variation to get into the pose where we can get in a little deeper. So we would come onto hands and knees and really scooch the knees in together. The feet step out to the sides, and then we sit back. I don't like that version of getting into the posture unless you know you have a lot of hip mobility, because what can sometimes happen is we get the knees all scooched together, we go to sit back, and we can't stop ourselves from going all the way back, but the hips are not open enough, and that can be a little bit too much for the knees. So I really like the seated version, get the legs in, and then if you don't feel a stretch, then you know you're ready for that second version of getting into the pose, which is from hands and knees. All right, so we're here, we're in. Wherever you get stuck, we hold. Maybe up on a block, maybe up on 2 blocks. The good thing about this pose, and actually the last one as well, is that, so for square and shoelaces, they both tend to open up a lot quicker than some poses. So if you practice this every day, for example, you'll find that you improve dramatically, fairly quickly. I mean, dramatically it's all in the eye of the beholder, but there's some stretches. It feels like you could do this all day long every day and you still wouldn't get anywhere. That's not true. The body is progressing even when we don't see it. However, this one, there's usually remarkable results fairly quickly, so it's nice. It's nice to have those 1 or 2 poses where you can see the results. Let's slowly come on out. And then give the body a second. And then we'll ravel it up the other direction, tie those shoelaces. So now I've got my right leg under the left, left over top. Wherever you can get stuck, just hold. And if you're not feeling a stretch here, you can lean forward to hands and knees, scooch those knees together, and then sit back. I do a lot of maneuvering in this, in this one. I mean, I fidget in all of my poses. We're not supposed to, but. And then hold, especially the left side. When my left leg is on top, that hip is tighter, so I like to fidget, which tells me I'm guarding. So what I need to do is relax more and even come out a little bit. And then hold. I find students who fidget, myself included, I'm a student, I'm a teacher, but I'm a student first and forever. If a student fidgets, it's one of 2 reasons. 1, guarding, and you're in the pose too deep, come on out. Or just have too much energy. So yin does require a calmness, and sometimes if you haven't used as much energy yet, it can be challenging. This is why children are not very good at yin, fidgety, because they've got lots of energy usually, always. And then we'll slowly, see I stopped fidgeting, that's because I relaxed, I was guarding, and I let go, and now I'm able to relax and slowly, slowly come on out. That's too bad. I was hoping I had just way too much energy. That's why I was fidgeting. Couple little knee taps, leaning back. And for the next one, it is a yin posture, but it requires standing up. So I don't know if I agree with that, but it's okay. We're going to do it. It's a good one. So we stand up. It's called squat. So the name is a bit of a spoiler alert. So we stand up. We tip the toes out to the sides and make sure that the feet are even. For some reason, mine are not. Here we go. So my heels are in line with each other. My toes are tipped out to the sides. How much to tip out to the sides? I have my toes hanging off the edge, but the rest of my feet are on the mat. And then I really want to make sure that I'm pressing into the pinky toes because I'm going to bend my knees, so we're going to bend our knees. We want the knees to go out to the sides as much as possible. There is a tendency to tip the knees inward. The knees start facing forward, and then we pronate the feet, and it's not good. So we want to keep the knees turned out as much as available, and we bend as much as we can. So bending, and if you can all the way down, that's great. If not, then wherever you get stuck, just hold. And if you can go all the way down, we want to send the knees out to the side even more. So press the knees out to the sides with the elbows, and we're trying to sit up nice and tall. I am leaning forward, and I'm going to try to fix that. We don't want to fall backwards. So we do need to lean forward just a little bit because physics, right? There has to be a balance on both sides of the whatever it is. It's like a scale, right? There has to be evenness. Otherwise, we'll fall right back onto our hips or forward. I don't know, is that long enough? It's about a minute. This is one I don't recommend holding too long. especially at first. I find 1 minute is enough because this is one where, because we are in it and there's a bit of leverage, there's a bit of weight, the nerves, of course, that run up and over. So if the knee joint is closed too much with compression and a little bit extra weight for too long, we can start to get tingling in the toes. So we don't want that to happen. And then to come out, pressing equally into both feet, and you might need to help with your hands. Come on up. So yeah, 1 minute. 1 minute's good for that one. And come on out. We're almost done. The last one is quite lovely. So we lay all the way back. Any pose that starts with lie down is just lovely, isn't it? So the next one's Happy Baby, which we do in Hatha yoga as well, but it's a little bit different in yin. So laying on the back, hug the knees in, and we're trying to clasp the outer edges of the feet. So I bring my arms to the insides of the knees, and then if I can't reach the outside edges of the feet, then I clasp onto the ankles or the shins, whatever I can find. And then with whatever I've found, I want to draw my feet outward so that the soles of the feet are facing the sky. There's a tendency for the tailbone to lift up, so I'm going to try to bring the tailbone down so my spine is nice and straight. And in Hatha yoga, you might actually even draw the knees downward with just a gentle amount of pressure. But with yin, we want gravity to work. So just let the legs be here and let the weight of the legs initiate the stretch. So I'm trying to eventually have my knees touch the floor, but I'm doing it passively. I'm just letting the weight of the legs stretch the hips, and we hold. And so my arms, I'm not drawing the knees down, I'm just using the strength of the arms to keep the feet so that the soles are facing the sky. And that's about 1 minute. So I'll release the pose by hugging the knees in, maybe a little rock side to side on the back. And then to come on up, how I always like to come up when I'm laying down is roll over to the right side and just pause for a moment. And then slowly come on all the way up. And that's it for today. So there's a few yin poses for you. I hope you enjoyed these postures as much as I do, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a really good rest of your day.